Hey guys, how's it going? Ben here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to play over the chord changes to Stevie Wonder's Isn't She Lovely? This is a great first tune to learn how to play over non-diatonic chord changes. Firstly, because it's a very familiar tune. Secondly, the chords that require a little bit of extra special attention in order to successfully play over them are few in number. Now, before we can try and play over this tune, we have to know what the chord progression is. So, here's what we have from the top. We've got C sharp minor 7, F sharp 9, it's just like an F sharp 7, but the 9 adds a little bit more color. We have an A over B, which is just an A major chord, with the B note at the bottom, and then an E major 7. Now this is the first section of the tune, and we're going to start there before we move on to the second section. So now that we know what our chord progression is for this first section, we have to go back and find which of these chords is non-diatonic to the key of the song, which is E major. So in order to do that, we have to know which chords are diatonic, or in the key of E major. So, in the key of E major, you have this sequence of major and minor chords starting from your root. E major, F sharp minor, G sharp minor, A major, B major, C sharp minor, and then you get this weird funky one, D sharp diminished, and then we get back to our root, which is E. So now that we know what chords are actually in the key of E major, now we can go back to our chord progression and figure out which of these chords do not belong. So let's go over it one more time. C sharp minor 7, now that chord does belong to the key of E major, it's the 6th minor chord. F sharp 9, I think we have found our very first chord. As we went through this chord sequence, we found out that the F sharp normally would be an F sharp minor, but here we're playing an F sharp 7 chord, F sharp 9. Therefore, this will be our first chord that's going to require special attention when we're playing over this. So we'll come back to that. Let's figure out the rest of the chords first. So then we have an A over B. Now, A major is in the key of E major. It is the 4 major chord. Now, this B at the bottom is also in the key of E major, so we have no problems there. And then, of course, we have our E major 7. E major is in the key of E, so we're all good there. So now that we've figured out which chord does not belong, how do we play over this chord? Now, in order to know how to play over this chord, we actually have to go into that chord and figure out which notes in that chord are non-diatonic to the key of E major. So let's go back to our F sharp 9 chord. It looks like this. So you have the 9th fret of the A, the 8th fret of the D, the 9th fret of the G, and the 9th fret of the B. So actually, out of all of these notes, if you compare it to your E major pentatonic or your full E major scale, what you'll find is that there's really only one note in that chord that doesn't belong, which is this one. This is the 8th fret of the D string. Now, normally this note would be here at the 12th fret of the A string, or it would also be a half step below that 8th fret. So the reason why this is so important is because if we're not careful about this note, we might end up with a very unfriendly sound, the dreaded minor second. So we have one of two options here. The first option is we can avoid that note entirely, which means not only would we avoid the note that's in the chord, but we would also avoid the note that is a half step away that is in the scale, which is A. The other option is that we can make a point of highlighting that non-diatonic note, or out of the key note, so that it fully complements the chord that is also non-diatonic or out of the key. And for our purposes, that's what we're going to be focusing on so that we can play over this chord progression with full confidence. So what you find is that if you incorporate that non-diatonic note into your full E major scale, you actually end up with the C-sharp Dorian mode. Now, this C-sharp Dorian mode is diatonic to the key of B major. However, because this F-sharp 9 chord we have to play in Isn't She Lovely is already out of the key anyway, we are going to temporarily shift our mindsets to a Dorian shape when we get to that chord instead of a major scale shape, whether it be E major pentatonic or E major aeolian, which is just the modal name for a root position E major scale. So now, to test this out, what we're going to do is we're going to play one chord at a time, and after we play each chord, we're going to try to make a quick little riff that resolves around the tones of that chord. And we can either do this by sight, by trying to end on one of the notes that are in the chord, or we can do this by ear. Basically, if it sounds good, it's correct. So, let's try that. C sharp minor. F sharp 9, A over B, and then to E major 7. Okay, now that we've taken care of the first section, we can take a look at the second section. Now, the second section chord progression goes like this: A major 7, G sharp 7, C sharp minor 7, F sharp 7, A over B again, and then E major 7. There's also this pentatonic riff that happens. So same thing we did with the first section, we're going to do the second section, we're going to go through all the chords, and we're going to find out which chords do not belong in the key of E major. A major 7, that is the 4 major chord, that one is okay. G sharp 7. This is our second chord that is non-diatonic or out of the key of E major. Remember when we went through that sequence, we found out that the G sharp chord in the key of E major should be minor. Here we're playing it as a 7 chord, so we'll figure out what we have to do in that case in a second. Let's go over the other chords first. C sharp minor 7, that is the 6 minor in E major, so that's okay. F sharp 7, this is the same non-diatonic chord we had in the first section, so we already know what we have to do here. A over B, we had this chord in section 1. E major 7, of course, is diatonic to the key of E. We also had this in section 1 as well. So there's only one other chord other than the F sharp 7 that is non-diatonic in this chord progression, and it is the G sharp 7 chord. So same thing we did with that other F sharp 7 chord, we need to go back and we need to figure out which notes or note does not belong to the key of E major. And what we find that it's actually this note here. This is a C natural, and if you're playing your G sharp 7 bar chord, you'll notice it's that 5th fret of your G string. Now, this note also exists in this E major scale that we played up here, a half step away from the C sharp note. This is also often incorporated in the minor pentatonic blues scale. And all the other notes that are in that chord are in the key of E, so that's really the only troublesome note. So now that we know that, we have, again, one of two choices. We can either make a point of avoiding that 7th note entirely, or we can make a point of accentuating that note to complement this G sharp 7 chord. So that's what we're going to do. Either way, what you want to be careful of is that you don't hit this half step below it, which is in the key of E major, because you will end up with this beautiful So the same thing we did with that first section, we're also going to do the second section. We're going to play one chord at a time, and after we play each chord, we're going to play a quick riff where we resolve it on one of the chord tones, either by doing that by sight or by ear, so that we can start becoming familiar with that non-diatonic note that we'll have to incorporate in our soloing. So A major 7. That works, simple. Now here's our G sharp 7. Notice how I'm making a point of ending that phrase on that note that is specifically out of the key, but in the chord. I can do this in any shape I'd like. C sharp minor. F sharp 7, we already figured this one out. A over B. E major 7. And then, of course, our riff. So now that we've done this for section A and section B, we're going to put all the chords together and do the exact same thing, one chord at a time. So here we go. Section B. So now that you're familiar with all these notes, what you might try to do is try to play along with a backing track. The one I played to at the beginning of this video will be linked in the description. These guys make awesome backing tracks. You could go ahead and parade their channel and you'll find a bunch of other classics that you can jam over. But now that you know where these non-diatonic notes are, you might go try to play over the actual song or the backing track, perhaps slow down the speed a little bit to give yourself a chance to think about where these notes are in real time, and just try to make a point of highlighting those non-diatonic notes, which might mean that at the very beginning you'll try to keep your phrasing very simple, but in the long term you'll gradually pick up the speed as you become more and more aware of where these notes are in any of your favorite scale shapes, so that you'll be able to play over it with full confidence and just have fun. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, send me a message or drop a comment below, and I'll see you next time.